Yeah.
quality.
Okay,
Yeah.
done. Done. All right, I'll hand over to you, Mark.
Great. Well, I'd like to welcome members and guests to Riverside Business Chamber's June virtual Business After Hours meeting. I'd like to thank our support partners, City of Ryde, BusyNet and Max My Profit Ryde, and thank you to our patron member, Servcorp. In these challenging and fast-changing times, I invite all members to regularly check out our website for upcoming events, videos of past events, as well as for helpful content to assist businesses in maximising their online presence. Additionally, please check out our YouTube channel and the growing number of 60-second pitches from our membership. If you would like to be included and have your own 60-second pitch, please email info@riversidechamber.com.au or contact our Vice President, Mr. Andrew Hill. I would now like to introduce tonight's host, Mr. Tony Abboud, President of the Riverside Business Chamber.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a big night tonight where firstly, if I could acknowledge our Mayor, Councillor Jerome Laxell. Welcome, Jerome.
Thanks for having me.
And we've got Dr. Felix Lowe, who will formally introduce himself. And we've got tonight a whole series of chamber presidents who we're going to be speaking to. We've got a fairly full agenda tonight. So let me say that, last month we had a full agenda and we went a little bit over time, so I apologise for that. Tonight we'll stick to the timeline. But last month we were talking in terms of, whilst we're socially distant, we're focusing on being closer. I think our theme this month is all going to be around the concept of the rebound is going to be stronger than the slowdown. And as businesses and all of our members, we've got to be ready to take advantage of this rebound that's coming as we loosen restrictions and get back to normal. So tonight we've got a series of presidents, but in the first instance, we've got our Mayor, Jerome. Last month, we spoke to our state member, we spoke to our federal member, and this month we're bringing it down to the local level to see where council's been in the last couple of months, how they've coped, but more importantly, what we're doing moving forward, particularly from a council's point of view, but also from a council point of view in correlation to all the local businesses. So, Jerome, our Mayor of Ryde, welcome. Can I first start off by asking you, how have you been over the last couple of months? How's it been?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And look, thanks everyone for having me on. It's always great to touch base with everyone and to give you an update. And if anyone wants to type any questions or whatever, just use the chat function and I'll try and get to them if we've got time. I'm happy to look at that and give you some answers. But yeah, I've been okay. It's been a really interesting couple of months. I've been healthy and so has the family. And I guess early on, those days were a bit interesting, particularly from a council perspective, just trying to make sure that we're able to still serve our community and remove a lot of the risk that was around, just so that we could continue to function, either function as a council, as an elected body. We had to take steps to make sure that if one of us got sick, that it didn't take everyone out. But also, senior staff, and then you drill down into the service delivery. Before there was, I don't know if you recall, it seems like it was a year ago, but it was only a couple of months ago. That first couple of weeks, it took a while before, there was some sort of stability with the rules. Almost every day there was a different rule. It took a while before there was a complete lockdown. So we were trying to work in this vacuum early on to try and figure out where the sweet spot was with delivering our services still, which, all our ratepayers pay for, but also ensuring, our duty of care to our ratepayers to make sure that they didn't get sick at, one of our libraries, or they didn't get sick at the customer service centre. And of course, our 600 full-time equivalent staff but they didn't get sick either. So that was where a lot of the energy went early on, just to get the organisation stable, and to make sure that we could continue to do our job at right from the elected level down to the officer level. And then
you've
obviously
obviously been successful doing that.
Well, I think so. I think we've been able to, notwithstanding some of the changes in law, which meant that we couldn't have the pool open, and we can't have libraries open as they want to. They only just reopened today in a very reduced capacity. But we've been able to keep on all our staff, which was really important for me and for the organisation. So they've been redeployed in areas like home delivery of library books, which is something that we've never done before. We launched a library to you service, which is basically Uber for our libraries. You go choose an line, gets delivered to your front door. So we've sort of pivoted to those areas. But I think, once we got the organisation stable, we spec'd up everyone with their IT. Microsoft had a big payday because we had to buy a whole heap of new computers and licenses and stuff. But the organisation was able to run, and then we started turning our attention, particularly at the elected level, on how we can help businesses and our community through this. And we've passed a range of measures to do that. We're waiving at least 50 or 60 fees from outdoor dining to a lot of the food inspection fees that we have to undertake. They've been waived. We're landlords. We've got about 40 commercial leases, so we have to change the policy to allow flexibility in those, deferrals, reductions, offsetting, stuff like that. So that'll be done on a case-by-case basis with our commercial tenants. We passed very quickly and a good package to ratepayers. So all ratepayers who are eligible for JobKeeper or JobSeeker will get a $400 rebate off their 2020-2021 rates. We're also not charging interest if you need time to pay it. We're not starting any debt collection over the next 6 months or until the end of the year. So, there's a lot of policy changes that we had to make pretty quickly, but also make sure we got the balance right. I know it was an argument I put to the councillors was that I'd prefer a larger amount of rebate go to a large amount of relief go to people who need it rather than a smaller amount to everybody. So staff originally said, oh, well, we'll give everyone $50 off their rates. And I said, well, hang on, no, like A, $50 isn't enough. But B, we want to make sure that this is targeted and it goes to people who have lost their job or who have might have had a wage reduction and are just getting the JobKeeper payment rather than someone who hasn't had their income touched that much at all. So we're able to get all that through. And so that'll start hitting. Now, that, of course, like everybody, we're sharing, as an organisation, we're sharing the pain of reduced revenue. So we're looking about, a budget's coming to us this month. So we're looking at about, we've got an $8 million revenue hole that we've got to fill. And we'll either be able to do that through reserves, or we may be posting a deficit, or we may be able to defer some minor things until next year, but we're just waiting for that to come back. Saying that, we're very aware that the state government and the federal government really want us to ramp up our public projects. There was an interesting debate in council last week, which thankfully lost. Some councils wanted to defer some major projects, and now in a recession, deferring infrastructure projects isn't what any level of government want us to do. So we're going full steam ahead with all our infrastructure projects to ensure that we've got jobs locally and that we're using historically low interest rates to fund our small and big projects as we move forward. So
Can I ask, there's a few questions that I've been asked to ask you. A couple of things. Firstly, it's been well known the support you've given to the businesses in Eastwood, particularly early in the piece. A lot of the business community across the whole city are saying, are there any sort of cost savings, incentives or strategies moving forward to support the local business community? Do you have anything in the pipeline along those?
Sure. So if you think about way back in February was when we passed the Eastwood Small Business Hardship Grant. That was at a time when we weren't anywhere near lockdown, but what we'd seen was misinformation spreading in the community, and Eastwood was quieter then than it is now. If you look at the economic impact that was on Eastwood, it was stronger. It was starker back then than it was even 1 or 2 weeks ago. So council resolved to step in and give up to a certain amount. So we gave about $1,900 each to 230 businesses in Eastwood, and that's been well received. To date, my understanding is that we're the only local government area to give a direct grant to small businesses. And that enabled a lot of those businesses to stay open, and that was really successful. What we resolved at the last council meeting was to look at a stage 2 now, and staff are going to prepare not only what's affordable for the city to be able to support our business with, but what's the best way forward in this environment. If you think about what was good in February and March and April, that is very different to what is good now. So I'll be looking towards some programs that incentivize businesses to innovate, that encourage our community to spend money locally, but also encourage those from outside Ryde to come into Ryde. So they're the type of incentives and promotions that I'll be looking to see from staff up to a certain value, something that is sustainable, something that we can afford. Once the budget's passed, that should come back to council and we'll be ready to roll something out. As with all these expenditures, because they're sort of one-off or out of the operational and delivery plan, we have to put them out on public exhibition for 28 days. That's the law. So once council resolves on their way forward, we'll be in a position to put that out to exhibition and try and get some more support to local businesses.
Sorry, go on.
So that was resolved at the last council meeting. So we're looking to get that report soon. And just looking at 2 questions here: reduction income, ongoing delivery of services by council. We're not looking at any reduction in services. The final report will come to council at the June council meeting. So we'll either post a small deficit budget where we can continue our services as they are, or we'll be able to use some reserves to try and fund the whole. Or I've even heard staff recommending just a deferral of some spending in this financial year and just pushing it out 6 months. All our projections are that so our main revenue hit was in the sort of rates. We're giving a lot of rebate back in rates, so that's sort of a one-off hit. A lot of our revenue hit was in some of our fees and charges. So all the inspection fees that we have, so that took a big hit. We're talking about 8 and 12 million. Last count was about an $8 million hole, and staff are looking to fill that at the moment. How can you discern who's on JobKeeper to get the rate rebate? We need proof from either the so businesses have enrolment forms that they can send through to show that they're on JobKeeper. Staff employees can send through a pay slip or a stat deck or something to say that they're on JobKeeper as well. I know the pay slips that some small businesses receive have JobKeeper top up, or they can get of course, employees have their form that they filled out to show that they're eligible, to show that they have to accept that. So a copy of that form will be proof for us to discern that someone's on JobKeeper or not. Just one second, Tony, 1 sec.
think we got family.
I just had to download an app for my son, so all the important things.
Very
are
important. Very important. One question I wanted to ask is, as we come out of the COVID-19 situation and restrictions are being relaxed, the concept now is all about economic recovery and and we've heard what state government's doing, what federal government's doing. I know one of the adjoining councils is actually ringing up everyone who's got a DA approved and saying, how can we get you to get started? Because we want you to start building, because they want economic activity happening in the local area. I know we've had 2 projects approved within our local government area, the Meadowbank Education Precinct and the Ivanhoe Estate. That was done by the state government. From local council's point of view, from a planning point of view, are you doing anything to streamline planning to get some economic activity happening in the city of Ryde? Because we don't want to lose high value projects to other local government areas where there's an opportunity to create economic activity in this area. That's where we want it to be.
Absolutely, and the council agrees with you, Tony. So as I mentioned earlier, the first thing that we're doing is we're going full steam ahead with our projects, including the $100 million Ryde Central project, which will sustain about 1,000 jobs. So tender's been signed for that, and that's going full steam ahead, despite what you may or may not be reading in the local paper and other areas. But that's a huge project and a much needed one for our city. In regards to some of the other planning issues, we're having a bit of an issue trying to get some planning proposals ourselves through the state government. So we're pushing hard to ensure that those go through, and they're from affordable housing, which has been with the state government for almost 1,000 days without any resolution, to some of the more recent ones, including stuff on the housing code. So we're just waiting for some approval there. In regards to individual DAs, I'll have to take that on notice to see what our staff are doing. I know we're one of the councils that are about to take on e-planning, which is a great initiative from the state government, and that is the intention there is to speed up the process in regards to development application lodgement, but also get towards quicker approval. And I heard some of the comments today by the Prime Minister. They want to incentivise smaller jobs, smaller tradie jobs, home renovations, and housing builds. So whatever we can do in that space to get people in jobs locally is something that we'll do. So I'll have to take that on notice to see exactly what planning staff are doing day to day. But I know in terms of our projects, we're going full steam ahead, and we've got the major car park build down at Eastood. We've got obviously Ryde Central, which is a huge project. We've got some other stormwater works and another project that we want to proceed with down in Eastwood as well. We've got parks and playgrounds that we want to update, seawalls, roads, footpaths. These are all things that we can push through, that we use contractors for, that we do ourselves, to make sure that you got that flow-on effect of people working locally, they spend locally as well. So we're going full steam.
Well, that's very important for the business community, because the more activity there is, they're all multipliers. They create employment, they create money turnover, and hopefully most of that money turns over within our local government area, and that's what we're looking forward to. I don't know if you were on when we said it earlier, we're looking forward that the rebound will be stronger than the slowdown, and be strategically placed to capture all the activity that comes from the rebound. So that's what we're on about.
I've seen some analysis, Tony, that says that they're predicting the rebound of this one to be 6 quarters, to go from its pre-pandemic peak to back to the normal level. And for comparison, the global financial crisis was about 10 to 12 quarters. So, we're hoping that we get a good recovery, and that we can, a lot of that recovery and a lot of that business activity happens here in the city of Ryde. There's
Well,
the
that's
Macquarie
right.
Park. Just one more thing in terms of planning. I understand that the Macquarie Park strategic review is very close to going out to public exhibition. That'll fiddle around with some of the zonings in Macquarie Park. Rightly or wrongly, we'll see what happens when it's released. But I'd imagine a big the government will come out and use economic growth and construction to sell that, whatever those changes are. Our concerns will likely remain in regards to infrastructure delivery tied with those changes, but that's a concern that we have today, let alone in a month or two time when they release that strategic review. But look, I think what I wanted to make sure the other night at council is that everyone was singing from the same song sheet, that we all want to make sure that when the federal government say that they want to give out $1.8 billion to local government, we'll make sure that we've got the projects ready to submit so that we can get funding for them. When the state government say they've got $250 million worth of low cost loans, we want to make sure that the finances stack up so that we can take advantage of that and spread a lot of the cost and sort of accelerate more projects, because that's why they're giving them to councils. And we want to make sure that our projects are affordable and deliverable, and that's something that we've done to date and something that we'll continue to do.
Well, I think our attitude from the business community is we don't expect that the council to take the whole load themselves. I think it's very much a public and a private type coalition, so to speak, where the private sector, the local businesses are active, they're employing, they're vibrant in their businesses. Alongside with everything that council's doing, and that's what we're trying to sort of encourage. So thank you to our mayor. Thank you for joining us. Stay on and listen to the other chamber members and other chamber presidents who are speaking. So thank you very much, Jerome. I really appreciate your support and being here.
And look, good on you guys for continuing to do this and getting online and adapting with this crisis. It shows how resilient the Riverside Business Chamber is and how important it is to still connect with one another. So hats off to you all, and I look forward to sharing that beer or that. Maybe not on a smorgasbord. We won't be able to pick, share plates anymore. But I'm sure we'll be able to see each other in face to face one day, and I look forward to that.
Well, the proposal, speaking to council staff, is that we're aiming for our first live meeting face to face to be in September at the Venture Cafe.
Yeah, great, good.
So that's what
I was thinking it might align with our annual one. That'd be good. Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah.
Great to hear. Yeah,
so we're looking forward to September to being face to face. So thank you.
No worries. I'll stay online and check the chat. I'll turn off my video though, because I'm going to cook some dinner. So I'll do that while
All right, you're welcome to stay online. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
So now, Dr. Felix Lowe, can I hand over to you? Can I ask you, Doctor, to introduce yourself, because I know there's some new members who don't know yourself and the association you represent, but we'd just like you to sort of start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about where you're at and where you're heading.
Well, thank you, President Tony. I'm Dr. Felix Lowe, the president of the Australian Asian Association of Bennelong. We've been a very active group in the constituent for over 10 years. And I see some of my colleagues here, Mr. Hugh Lee, OAM, who was the former president and now current honorary president. And what we do is a bit like a neighborhood watch thing. We look after one another, we look after everybody in the community, and we promote especially harmony within the community. And just picking up from what President Tony was saying, I would like to take a step into the future with everybody. And I have been talking with my colleagues in the accounting world, in the legal world, in my university, in the academia. So what is going to happen after the pandemic? We don't know the future, but nevertheless, we must be prepared. And I came across this report that I read this week, which I really liked, by the CPW. And I totally agree that there are going to be 3 stages. The first stage is going to be a stage of repair. And the second stage is going to be a stage of rethink of what we are doing. And then the first stage will be the stage of reconfiguration. So let us start with repair. Well, you see, at the moment, the paramount importance when this is over is to fix what has been broken. And that starts with the bank. Not the big banks, but my bank. And those damages that has been done to our businesses' balance sheets, our own personal balance sheets, or even those older retirees who have suffered a lot of losses in their retirement funds, or even our friends at the cafe, the younger people who are just getting by. Well, in hindsight, have a look at the GFC. The world, most of the world took 10 years to rebound. Some never. So in essence, us as a business community, we have to expect to address after this pandemic, our wicked balance sheets, our revenue declines for many of us. And for many of us, the weakened supply chains, and not to mention the depleted employee basis. And then we have the next stage, which we must rethink of what we are doing. Well, rethinking starts with something that is practical. We need to review and think about how we did and how we responded to the pandemic, so that we can be better prepared for our next inevitable crisis, because there will be one. Well, when you think about it, it would be impossible for our system to cope with the next challenge if we remain the same. Us as a business community, we need to rethink our operating model so that it will be robust enough to handle future challenges and especially disruption. For example, supply chains that in a world which international transport may be shut down. And the first stage, there will be reconfiguration, whether we like it or not. You see, this pandemic has put into our mind of everybody that there's a strong belief of the truth that the institutions, businesses are not ready for the 21st century. So reconfiguration may mean for you and me as a business person to take on trends that have gained currency in response in this time of pandemic. For example, telemedicine, distance learning, remote working, which I don't mind, and Skype meeting. And companies that are not ready for platform-based economy, that means digital, will need to be ready very, very quickly. But the good news is this reconfiguration may make easier because of this pandemic has provided a rare opportunity for time to be suspended. An opportunity to make changes that we previously thought is impossible.
Sure.
And lastly, we expect the reporting is going to be different. You see, in the midst of this pandemic, which we are still in now, there has been a constant search for clarity. You know, in this time and age of uncertainty with invisible enemies, people will only be comfortable to go around their business if they are confident about the information that they are getting. So do expect more disclosures in reports and information in real time on almost everything. So good luck, good night, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
And I give reference to that report by the CPW, which I really like, which really pinpoints those 4 points that I talked about. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions of Dr. Felix?
Tony, I've got a question.
Sure. Ivan?
Just, Dr. Lowe, what innovations were forced upon you by this crisis, and which will you continue to use going forward?
Well, I think innovations is, I think what comes to light is it's about being more prepared for the unexpected. You see, we live in a very, very lucky country, and things, look at the world, we are relatively stable. But I think the lesson that I learned, or the innovations that I will have, is maybe just take a small step to think about what may happen next month in a business sense. Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for that. Now, we have another special guest with us, which is Councillor Craig Chung. Craig, are you there?
Sure am, Tony.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
City of Sydney councillor and strong supporter of Riverside, still a resident of our great city. So, you know, we really enjoy having you there and your support and your global insights. How have you been over the last couple of months?
Oh, it's been an unusual period for everyone. I think the fact that we've gotten used to doing this Zoom stuff so quickly is a testament to how resilient people are, and it's great to see, you know, a lot of faces and friends here on the screen. But I have to say that this does not replace the real interpersonal contact. You know, being able to talk to somebody face to face and get instant reactions, be able to share, you know, feelings and a sense of real life, what's going on. It doesn't replace that. But it's interesting, you know, because across Greater Sydney and the City of Sydney, I think, you know, and we've all talked about it already, we're thinking about what does post-COVID look like. I think, first of all, there is no post-COVID. I think that we've become so used to social distancing now that now becomes something that we all think about as we work, but also for me and for the mayor that you've got here and others, about how we shape our city and what does the city look like. And I think that, I mean, this is a personal view, but I think that probably we're going to see, you know, more and more of these things. We've seen SARS and MERS and swine flu and those others, and we're so mobile globally. I think we will see more of these. I think our city has now started to learn how to deal with it in our country. So interestingly, you know, we're now starting to think about in the city, what does Sydney look like? Sorry, I should say, first of all, just for those who haven't heard this before, at any given day pre-COVID, we would have 1 million people in the City of Sydney. There's 200,000 residents, but the rest of it's made up of people who come to work, business owners, visitors, tourists, people coming for medical appointments. So what does that look like, though, if we have 20% less people? If 20% of people work from home, for instance, or 30 or 40. So what does that look like for our city? And what does that look like for Macquarie Park or Parramatta City Centre? Just last week, we approved very, very rapidly to expand a large number of footpaths in the City of Sydney because traffic is down so much we can, and that will allow people more social distancing, at the same time allow restaurants, which are now allowed to be reopened, to spread out onto footpaths. We've put in 5 new temporary bike paths very quickly, and that's because we can. And now they may become permanent, they may not be. But think about things like public transport. What does public transport look like when you have 14 people on a bus? And is social distancing there to stay? And does that affect the viability of public transport? And what does that mean for our city? And what does that mean for companies? And then for businesses, small businesses and large businesses, what does it mean for us? Does it mean that we now have to think about a smaller real estate footprint? Or does it mean we have the same footprint but in different places? And I think this is where an opportunity comes for places like Macquarie Park, for the top of the line at Tallawong, for Parramatta and further out west, where I suspect that businesses that can and have a larger number of staff will operate from many different premises. And so while people are working from home, I think that there'll be a combination of working from home, working at remote office and working at head office. I think that feels to me like what may happen. I think some of us and some people have really learnt to work well from home. Others crave an office space more. But either way, I think that there'll be a definite change in real estate. And I think that's a big opportunity for Macquarie Park. And the Mayor mentioned that the strategic review's coming out. I'm not as pessimistic as he is about it. I'm looking forward to seeing what it actually looks like and how we can actually leverage that for us and for our businesses, for the dormitory suburbs that are around Macquarie Park. And Macquarie Park being in such a great location that it already has a metro from that northwest Sydney. So look, I'm feeling very positive about the unfortunate circumstance that we're in, and I'm looking at some of the big picture visions for, look, what does it mean for our city, other cities around the world, and how can we leverage that? So I know, Tony, you and the Chamber Executive are looking at how you can actually grow the footprint of this Chamber in collaboration with others. And I think that that's really important, because that's going to help us to look further afield than just our own backyard. And how does this affect us as a big city, as a greater Sydney? So that's just some of my thoughts about where we're at and how things are going.
Thank you, Craig. I know that a lot of things that were progressively going to be introduced over the next 2 or 3 years have been brought forward, just by the nature of our circumstances. And I think we've got an opportunity now, and, we pay condolences to those who've sort of suffered from COVID-19. But I think we've got to look forward for the opportunity that this has presented to us, to bring forward a lot of innovation and change. People talk about disruption, but I talk about improvements and positive change. And I think as long as we've got federal, state and local government all aligned, and the businesses, because we're the backbone, we're the ones who sort of create the employment, pay the taxes, and everything that governments can do to support us is going to act as a multiplier across the board.
Sorry, Tony, can I just remind you that I know you've talked about this with the Chamber already, but remember, everyone, small businesses are entitled to apply for grants to state government. If you haven't got your grant, make sure you get your application in. They've extended the deadlines. If any of you have any footprint in the City of Sydney, we have a huge number of grants. If you have any footprint whatsoever in the City of Sydney, even if your office isn't there, but you're doing work in the City of Sydney, you should check out the grants that are available. These are helping people to adapt as well to the change. That's
great. Thank you for that, Craig. I really appreciate it. So now what we're going to do, we're really lucky. We've got a few of our chamber presidents with us, and we'd like to hear from them. And can I perhaps start with Nora Edmedjian, who's the president of the West Ryde Chamber. Nora, would you like to say a few words? You're on.
Thank you, President Tony. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to the rest of you and just give you a quick update re West Ryde. And hello, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for holding this with the Riverside Chamber. What I would like to say is a few observations in West Ryde. It was quite interesting that once this pandemic started, West Ryde started to be a bit buzzing. Like if you go to Marketplace, and still if you go to Marketplace in West Ryde, there's a lot of shoppers in there. For some reason, people started to choose to come to West Ryde, where You can go to individual shops. It's not to the big shopping centers. They straight go where they want and leave quickly from the area. That really worked well for West Ryde, especially the marketplace, I said. Having said that, the executive is constantly walking around and talking to businesses. Yes, sometimes you see some businesses closing, but it's not necessarily related to the pandemic. And plus, once a business is closed, there's another one replacing it. So we're getting something new. And I can say within the past, since the start of the year, we can say we had 3 new businesses, various different businesses. And walking around, you see basically, as you all know, mainly the cafes are suffering, the medical centers don't have many people in their clinics and so on. So basically, it reflects what the pandemic has done. But to some extent, you see other places, they are really buzzing very well and lots of people are attending. At the same time, the chamber is trying to be connecting all the time with the local businesses. So we set up Love West Ryde Facebook page with the help from City of Ryde staff, which was great, and thank you so much for that. This page is aims to connecting the local community, the people that live in West Ryde and the surrounding areas and within City of Ryde, with local businesses, mainly local businesses within West Ryde and postcode 2114. That started 6 weeks ago and it's progressing really well. And now we are at the stage that we will start heavily promoting the Facebook page to be able to go into the thousands and so on in terms of people that are members of that page. So that's progressing really well. The other thing I really like to say is that as a result of this pandemic, quite a lot of people, including myself, I'm working a lot more from home. So West Ryde had already some businesses that are mainly working from home, but I think towards the end of this pandemic, there will be more and more businesses working from home. So now the executive is focusing on trying to see how we can reach those businesses that are from home and try to really connect them together and give them the opportunities to network. And right before the pandemic, we had the breakfast networkings in the morning, which was really going very well, and it was very well supported by local businesses. Once every 2 months, we had a get together and we would have a speaker and so on. So it was really going well. So we are focusing primarily on connecting with more local businesses as well as trying to get to the ones that are especially from home. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give you an update, and this is where we are up to.
Thank you, President Nora. Any questions for President Nora? I know for a fact that Council is about to start the West Ryde Master Planning as of this month, and I think West Ryde is going to become quite a substantial part of the City of Ryde moving forward, particularly with some of the plans that Council has for that district. So I think we can look forward to some great things coming on in West Ryde in the near future.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. We've just moved into the area from the beaches, but is there any way for small business owners to get involved or to support what you're doing?
Yes, of course. Would you be able to give me your details somehow outside this?
Sure. Yes.
But you can go on the website and there is an email as well as a mobile number, and that's my mobile number, so you can call me directly. Thank you.
Great. I'll do that, yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Next, we have our Gladesville Chamber President, Max McFarlane. Max, are you online?
Sure am, Tony.
There you go. I haven't seen you for ages. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to see you and see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
How have you been?
Been really well, thank you. I think like everyone's sort of been isolating a bit, staying home a little bit more, trying to keep happy and healthy, but things are going well. Can't complain considering what else is
So
happening.
tell us, how's Gladesville?
Gladesville is always good. I think some of the things that have been amazing to witness over the past few months is the amount of local community spirit.
Sorry, your voice is a bit low, Max.
Hopefully that's a little bit better there, Tony.
Thank you.
Look, some of the stuff that's been amazing to see in Gladesville, and I'm sure amongst different areas, is the amount of community spirit that's been drummed up. I think things have kind of got a little bit smaller during the pandemic. People haven't been able to transit much into the city, staying around more locally, sort of isolating a lot more. So there's been huge, incredible feeling and atmosphere of local business community and just local community in general, really sort of, coming together and striving. That's been really well represented through the Love Gladesville Facebook page. That was a collaborative initiative through Ryde Council and Hunters Hill Council. There's over 2,500 members of that Facebook group now as well. So it's got a lot of momentum behind it. We continue to leverage it as a chamber as well and promote a lot of local businesses. So I'd encourage everyone to have a look at that if you haven't. But it's been an incredible time here. I mean, of course, there's been a lot of unfortunate instances of businesses sort of not making it through already, or, health reasons and a lot of things happening. But, there's also been a lot of positive changes. Businesses are pivoting their business models and offering takeaway and trying to be adaptive to the situations. I think as Mayor like Sarah mentioned before, and Craig Chung, everyone pivoted to using Zoom very easily and readily. And so we're adaptive creatures, and it's been pretty amazing to see. In Gladesville, there are a lot of empty shops. There's other places as well, but, we remain pretty confident that, things will sort of pick up and there's a lot of strong community here. Besides that, I suppose just a couple of comments is we do have a digital event very similar to this on Tuesday, the 16th of June. It's a 10 a.m. event. You can find the event on our Facebook page, on our website, and online on Eventbrite. I encourage you all to come along. We'll be having the committee talking about various issues in the local area, updates from our industries, and what's happening. So everyone's more than welcome to attend that as well. And look, moving forward, the question is, how do local chambers support local businesses and trying to help them recover as fast as they can and indeed thrive even more than potentially pre-virus crisis? And, some of the ideas we're throwing around, and we'd be more than happy to collaborate with yourself, Tony, or any other chamber presidents and anyone that has some contributions to make, is doing, short video profiles on businesses. Sharing those on social media, making profiles, giving grants, doing things around Google and marketing initiatives and helping to establish that. So there's a lot of things we're sort of in the works for, and which we're quite excited about as well.
That sounds great. I love driving through Gladesville at night and seeing all the lights that council's installed to when you go through along Victoria Road. I think council's done a great job by lighting up Gladesville, and I think particularly after today, a lot of the good restaurants that were always quite busy in Gladesville, they should be back after today.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm sure.
Revival. Yeah. Any questions of Max?
Tony, I've got a question for Max.
Yes.
You go ahead, Ivan.
Thanks, Craig. Max, Ivan Radovnikovic, Riverside Business Chamber. I'm one of the board members. Just in terms of any red tape you'd like to see government and councils abolish going forward, anything that stands out?
Well, as you may or may not be aware, in Gladesville, Ivan, thank you for the question. One side of the road is Ryde Council, and the other side of the road is Hunters Hill Council. And that dividing line also stretches up to state government as well. So while it might not be technically red tape, there's also, there's definitely some sort of feeling of change. Like you kind of only have to look at the footpaths to sort of see a bit of a difference in some circumstances. So, both councils are working very hard to continue to work together. But I think strengthening that and continuing to treat Gladesville as one area, even though there's that division, technical division, is important.
And just a last question, any feedback in regards to expectations of small business going forward?
Can I just clarify expectations of?
A feeling from small business, and how optimistic or not optimistic are they feeling going forward? It's going to be a struggle, and for a lot of small business in particular, the fact that we're a commercial finance small business finance brokerage, and I'm very much teed into the federal government package for small business loans up to 250,000, and the fact that our funding's available. And it's hard for small business, very much so. And it's hard to obtain that funding too. It's not easy getting it through the banks because they've still got to justify servicing. And the deferral period, max of 6 months, that loan still has to be paid back within 3 years. So it's very hard for these small businesses, not only in getting the funding, but then the pressure of having to pay it back within a very short period.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a strong point. I'm also a finance broker, and so can relate to in doing similar things for small businesses. And often what businesses don't understand is that deferral period isn't necessarily a deferral of the interest that you need to pay. It just sort of backdates it and accumulates it to be paid later on. And there's all discussions to have business to be aware of. And, it always brings up the conversation around cash being king, or at least cash flow being king. And, cash flow modeling and forecasting and management is a priority. And I think that's very important for local businesses to understand, and potentially workshops around that could potentially assist.
Absolutely.
So can I just quickly ask a question, but it won't be, look, it might not be answerable right now. It might be too long. Max, 12 months ago, Hunters Hill were looking at a master plan for the Gladesville shopping area and the village there. Is that too long a question, too long an answer to give us maybe an update?
Yes. Look, I'm not sure what I can officially or unofficially say. I know that it is still in the works, Craig. As far as I know, there hasn't been a formal update. And indeed, I think the budget papers that Hunters Hill Council are looking at have something to continue to move it forward. But, as I'm sure you're aware, that key site where the Coles Shopping Centre is critically important to the future development of Gladesville. As a chamber, we keep a close eye on it, and as a local community, everyone does keep a close eye on it. So there's no, I think, formal update, unfortunately, yet, Craig, but I know that, there is a sort of wait and see. I know the owner developer had an application in at state level after sort of going to the sort of council level. So I think we're still technically waiting on that response, and that'll determine next steps.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Max. Thanks, Ivan. Thank you, Max, and no doubt we'll collaborate more often after this pandemic is over and more restrictions are eased. So thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So now can I introduce Steve Calhoun from the Eastwood Chamber. Steve, you're online.
Thank you, Tony.
You're representing Vic tonight?
I'm representing Vic.
And the whole Eastwood Chamber.
Yeah, got tied up with work, I think, somewhere. So
that's all good. How's Eastwood going?
Eastwood's getting there. Having a quick walk around today, there was a lot of the cafes were buzzing, and talking to some of the owners, they said they were just really pleased. They were flat out, still doing the takeaways, but having a lot more people inside obviously the cafes. And I know the club's just been booming since 10 o'clock this morning. So we've just been flat out trying to, but our most thing is obviously social distancing and just getting people used to the regulations that we have to follow. So maybe it's all just starting to come together, and obviously there's a lot more issues with the cars driving around, and we're back to normal parking problems.
Can I ask, is it true that after the initial shock with all the restaurants having to sort of wind down and lose all the sort of in-room diners,
yep.
Is it fair to say that a lot of them responded fairly quickly with takeaway and home delivery, so most of them maintained some semblance of business?
Around here, most of them, just kept doing the takeaway, and obviously using, Ubers and Uber Eats and all the rest of it. A few of them closed, and obviously maybe just took the chance to take a break, or maybe just didn't have the staff to man it, because obviously just doing takeaway, I know just keeping the club open for a couple of days just means more staff and all the rest of it. So, but I think most of them did survive. I know the one, Saki, which is with the club, they wanted to stay open just to show a presence to everyone that, you know, they were here and they were here for the long term. So, and a lot of people still kept coming and getting the takeaways. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good, because Eastwood's quite unique from a cultural point of view, and it's something that we're all very proud of, and we certainly don't want to lose that sort of cultural element that's made up in Eastwood. So you see a strong, good future there for all the cafes and restaurants?
Yeah, I do see a strong future. I mean, obviously, for those couple of weeks that the Eastwood Plaza was closed due to stormwater damage and all the rest of it, that slowed down everyone in Eastwood because people just couldn't come to Woolies or anything like that. So, but since that's opened, there's been a lot more presence and a lot more positive attitude going through Eastwood. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So anyone have any questions of Steve?
Yes, Steve, it's Andrew Hill, and
Yes,
I just
Andrew.
wanted to say congratulations. You hosted a lot of chambers at your Eastwood Club, and you brought everyone together at the height of the coronavirus. And together with Ryde, we really educated small business. So I just wanted, did you want to talk on anything there?
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks, Andrew. Look, yes, from that, I think I know there's quite a few that we started to do a bit more on social media. Obviously, I mean, I know at the club, I did every Friday, we did happy hour via Zoom, and we were getting 30 odd, 40 odd people, just members getting on, and that was just a way for them to socialise, talk business-wise. So yeah, I think I think Felix mentioned it earlier, it's just another learning curve that businesses have got to learn, that technology can take you into different avenues.
And where you are at the moment, if you had a super wish to reduce red tape, what sort of things could we do to help small business?
Yeah, I suppose to me it's just, yeah, clear those red tapes, just make it easier to get funding from banks, make applications to councils. I think all those things, if we can just simplify those, make them online as much as possible, that you're just not tying yourself or businesses up trying to get onto the telephone while you're still trying to run a business. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. We're all there to support, and I know Andrew's done a lot of work along with the City of Ryde, particularly when this pandemic first hit, and you guys have done a stellar job to hold things together. So great work, and pass on our regards to Vic. So thanks for that, Steve.
Will do. Thanks, Tony, and thanks to everyone.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Now we've got another special guest, a guest who's not normally with us, and that's the Epping Chamber of Commerce, Taj Moas. How are you?
How are you, Tony? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay?
welcome. Thank
you very much. How are you, Steve? It's been a long time since I've seen you as well.
Yes, Taj, it is.
Yeah, and you're side by side.
Yeah, well, we used to work next door to each other.
Oh, well, there you go.
In the old days.
Well, let me say, Epping's dear to my heart because that's where I live. And
is it?
Epping's a little bit like Gladesville, where it's subjected to two councils, Parramatta and Hornsby. And we've had a situation, if I could set the scene, that over the last few years, a lot of the businesses have been replaced by residential towers.
For sure.
So how's Epping going, and in particular in the last 2 months, and how's Epping been?
Well, just to clarify that point about the councils, there were some changes of the lines a few years ago. The only part of Epping which is now under, not under Parramatta, is North Epping. but both sides of the line now belong to both. When I say the line, I mean the railway line, or both sides of Beecroft Road now come under Parramatta. As I say, the only part is North Epping, where I am. That's still under Hornsby, and there's a long story about that, which we'll leave for another time. But in general, I was happy the last couple of days, just in terms of activity. So when this whole pandemic started, you got in the car and drove. It used to take 15 minutes to get to Epping from North Epping because of the traffic, you know. And now it became a few minutes, and you'd get in the car and I'd say, God, please bring the traffic back. It's a sign of activity, isn't it? It's almost a KPI. But before this pandemic started, we were just reigniting having the business after hours as well, and we had one at Bendigo. That's my wife behind the scenes. I'm sitting in the at the kitchen table. Anyway, can you still hear me, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'd started the business after hours, and we had one at Bendigo Bank, which was extremely successful. I think we had about 70 people there, which was our inaugural comeback, which was great. But in general terms, there are a couple of buildings in progress at the moment around Epping, and that's where the old Westpac building is, and that is the Cbus site, which is going to have 3 towers. Up the road a little bit, where Arden School is and the church there. There's been a building in the process. I think it's at JRPP at the regional planning panel now, and that's going to be approved. I think that's about 30 stories. There is where else? There is across the road from the Epping Club. There's a building there that's been approved. The Lion family or the Lion Group are also working with council on a building which is just off the corner of Beecroft Road and goes up towards the pub. So there is activity everywhere, and I think there's probably going to be lots of activity around Epping for the next decade. I think hopefully the buildings will be staged. They won't all just start going up all at once and create havoc amongst the community. Lots of the business, there are lots of, like echoing everybody else, there are lots of empty shops around Epping, both sides of the station. But the businesses that are growing in Epping are the tuition schools, if you like to call them that, you know. And they don't bring business. They're after hours. They start, 3-4 o'clock for the year 12s or those in primary school that are wanting to go into special classes and etc. But lots of the other businesses have gone, and there is nothing replacing them. Lots of the businesses that have been here for many years have just moved out because the buildings that are coming up don't have enough commercial space to cater, as you would know, Tony, as living in Epping and walking around. So it is really sad. We as a chamber have been fighting very hard for many years to have more commercial space included in lots of these buildings. But the residential element is more attractive to the developers than having a commercial percentage, say 10% of a building. They just don't want it. So that's basically where we are in Epping, where we've got another 10 years of building and a hell of a lot more people. We're turning into a Chatswood, basically.
Do you know when the Epping Bridge will be widened? Because
The Epping Bridge will be widened over the next few years. There's been, I think, off the top of my head, something earmarked, something along the line of $60 million for that.
Because one thing about Epping is that it's, we call it the sort of the transport interchange of the north,
Yes,
similar
for sure.
to what Strathfield is on the south.
For sure.
We've got the Sydney to Hornsby line. We've got
Yes.
Bus Hill through Epping to Chatswood line.
Yes.
And there's the obvious missing link, if it's ever built, it's Parramatta to Epping through to Macquarie Park.
Absolutely.
If it's ever built, then Epping will be a major interchange on the north side, similar to what Strathfield is on the south side.
Interestingly, when what was it? Is it the M4? I forget all the numbers of them.
The M2
opened up a few months ago, 3-4 months ago. Once that link to the Hills district opened up, the people driving through Epping actually reduced, and the traffic coming through Epping reduced. I also use the trains a couple of times a week. I go into town, and that's even improved. However, we've still got a bit of work, and I take the Strathfield line to go to the city, because the going via Chatswood is a bit cumbersome. You have to change to get to the city. Now, that's not coming for another 3 or 4 years by the time they fix that line up.
When you know that there's 5,000 or 6,000 more residents going to be into Epping over the next 10 years, that'll
easily
define what sort of businesses are going to be needed to service those residents.
For sure.
And I dare say it'll be professional services. It'll certainly be food-based industries or businesses.
Yeah.
And certainly medical services. So there's
there are some of there are quite a
businesses.
number of those services already now, but we will obviously need more over the years as they come, because you will still have development coming that will be done from the corner of Carlingford Road up to where the Epping Club is in Rawson Street. That's all still to be developed on both sides of the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're looking forward, as I've said to all the other chamber presidents, as loosen up to sort of collaborate more often with you. And
absolutely, it'll be a pleasure.
Support each other, because I think it's like we said earlier to our mayor, we want as much employment, as much vibrancy, because that's what creates the multiplier.
Well, this is exactly what we've been saying to the state government, to council, is that if you take away the businesses, so many have already left, where are people going to go? We don't want to see Epping become a ghost town. You know, that you can't just run a metropolis like Epping with just restaurants and cafes. You know, where's the accountant? Where's the lawyer? Where's the doctor? Where's the physio? Where's the dentist? You know, all those other professions that are required to keep a community going.
I think what you should tell Parramatta Council, that if they don't do something, all the residents are going to come to Macquarie Park and Ryde and Eastwood to socialise, spend their money. So you've got to let them know that Epping's, all the residents in Epping are coming to Macquarie Park, Ryde and Eastwood to seat, and so let them know that.
We will. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Now, we were going to have the president of the Parramatta Chamber, Sean Condon, join us, but it appears that he's not been sort of. So I'd like to. Sorry, Andrew. I want to.
Could I have a suggestion for you?
Yes, of course.
You've been attending the Parramatta Chamber with Cause.
Yes.
Could I just ask you, what does Cause stand for, and can you elaborate on how it links in with Riverside?
Yeah, well, I was actually, we're thinking along the same lines, Andrew, but I was going to ask if Roger could do that bit. Roger, are you able to
I haven't attended any of the calls. I've attended the north side one that we're trying to get together with you, Tony.
Okay. I'll talk about cause for a moment, but do you want to mention what the Wasabi event is all about?
The Wasabi event is all businesses can enter in for the awards. It's a great event. Even if you don't win, you get a lot of publicity on all social media. So it's a great event. We went last year, I think it was over 300 people that attended. But you get a lot of exposure and it's good for your business.
All right. If I could put it into perspective, the Riverside Business Chamber is a member of a foundation member of an organisation called CAWS, CAWS, which is Chamber Alliance of Western Sydney. We're the most eastern chamber, northwestern chamber, if you like, of CAWS. It's quite a substantial organisation. We've got members all the way through from Blackdown out to Penrith, Dural. And CAWS is an organisation that was set up by an amalgamation of chambers from the western suburbs. But one of the events that they put on is, and coincidentally this year is the 30-year anniversary of this event. If you notice that we have our local business awards at Epping Club every year, well, this Wasabi, which is the Western Suburbs Alliance and Chamber, is held at the Rose Hill Gardens. It has, I think, Roger, you said 300 people. I was told it's 500 people. It's a black tie event. There are 16 categories of awards that organisations can nominate for. Oh, Sean's on. Hi, Sean.
Oh, good.
You're muted, Sean.
I'm unmuted now. How are you, Tony?
Good. How are you? We were just sort of doing a preamble while we were waiting for you. So welcome. Sean Condon, who's the president of the Parramatta Chamber of Commerce. How's Parramatta going, Sean?
Mate, it's quite positive at the moment. The Chamber's managed to sort of steady its way through this and keep in touch with members and do a few things. And as you were mentioning when I jumped online, the Wasabi's our biggest project that we've got running through until the end of the year. But the numbers during the early stages of the lockdown, Parramatta, like everywhere else, was a very barren place. But fortunately, I've been at work most of the weeks and I've been able to watch the numbers steadily improve to some degree of normality.
I was saying earlier before you came on that I know for a fact that Parramatta City Council is calling anyone who's got a DA approved and saying to them, what can we do to get you, to encourage you to get started with your DA, because they want to activate as much economic activity within the city as possible.
They're very keen to do it. There's a lot going on. Construction-wise, the light rail's in full swing, so there's barricades up everywhere and holes all over the place. Parramatta Square's going on along at a rocket pace. The council extension building, which is again part of Parramatta Square, has just commenced, and that'll be finished in 2023. And I noticed that the small section behind that in Macquarie Street is being that they're demolishing the buildings there now to get another building up and running there. So there's a lot going in full swing. I'm very keen to keep the momentum going, but I've got to say there's got to be a reasonable, you can probably get to a point where there's too much construction activity going on and there's no room to get business done around it. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, there's always disruption when there's construction, but the upside is that it's a great multiplier for employment and keeping people employed and active and vibrant and all that.
Absolutely, and it will have some degree of increased foot traffic with the construction workers and everyone else. So the main thing is, we're getting the bongos going to keep everyone aware that Parramatta's open for business and don't be a stranger.
Yeah, and we were mentioning earlier the missing link between Parramatta and Epping and Macquarie Park as far as a traffic link, but we've got to wait for the powers to be to make that connection.
Well, one of the things, I chair the Parramatta Light Rail Business Reference Group for Transport for New South Wales, and our main focus at the moment is obviously PLR1, which is the stretch from Carlingford through Parramatta and out to Westmead. Stage 2 is the section which takes it from Camellia effectively to Sydney Olympic Park. But as I've said to a number of people, the real value out of Parramatta Light Rail will come from stages 3, 4, 5 and 6, one of which has got to absolutely be the extension of the Carlingford line across through North Ryde towards Chatswood. And then the others that would run out into the hills and those areas, which will give us all the ability to more functionally get around the inside of the big circle, which will be made up of the metro.
Okay, and so you know, there's a lot of potential in the future. Now, before you came on, we were speaking to Roger Amir from Mytronics, and he was saying he was a runner-up at last year's Wasabi, one of the categories, and we started to talk about cause. So, Roger, have you got any comments about to Sean about from going from runner-up to winner at this year's Wasabi?
I've got to go to more Parramatta events. Sean, can I just ask a few questions for the members? How can they enter in the Wasabi Awards, please?
Yeah, look, there's a wasabi.com.au, which is the website that's up and running now. All of the information that people need about the awards, a bit of history, and it's a site that's growing inch by inch with some background and history on previous years. But access to that website, and there's a page that you can jump into where you can either nominate someone or you can self-nominate. And it's a very simple process. Traditionally, we've used the New South Wales Business Chambers portal, which has been very clunky and very complex. And it's created a number of barriers for us set by them on whether someone's street address or postcode was in or out of the area. This year, we made the critical decision to invest in the acquisition of our own portal. It's running 100 times better than the other one and is very simple and easy to use. So any complexities that people may have experienced in the past will not be a current problem.
May I ask another question, Sean? What is the collaboration and with Riverside? How does it affect our members?
Look, I think one of the most critical messages is a fantastic question, Roger. It's one of the most critical things to understand. The State Chamber abandoned all of their local awards this year. So the only significant Chamber award being run is in fact the Wasabis. It is Western Sydney. Whilst it's run and it was founded and built by Parramatta Chamber, it is the Western Sydney Awards for Business Excellence. So we're very happy to be working in conjunction with the Chamber Alliance of Western Sydney, or CAUS as many people will know it, to get it promoted out there. Anyone with a business in Western Sydney is welcome to be there, and the Chambers should work on it. And as I said in a meeting earlier today, a victory for someone in Western Sydney is unilaterally a victory for the Chamber that they are a member of. And it's a very good way for all of the Chambers to get up there. So the fact that you're a member of the Riverside Chamber or the Hills Chamber or some other chamber is by in any way an impediment to success. And in fact, the judging is done by a very elite panel made up of very senior business, political, educational and other leaders. They come from a pool, but the actual appointed judges are not known to the board of the chamber. It's run completely independently, and each application stands on its own merit and the review by a professional body of judges. It's not a vote for your mate arrangement. If the application is of substance and the organisation behind it is of substance, then they have a really, really good crack at being the winner.
And can I say that the definition of Western Sydney is anything west of Circular Quay?
Not quite. We do need to make sure that the East understands that they are in the East, but in a rough speak, if you put a line north-south through Strathfield, you've roughly got anything west of that.
Yeah, that's right. And can you just, I was in the process of explaining our membership with Cause. If you could just give us a couple of sentences around how we collaborate with Cause and what Cause is doing as a separate organisation.
Critically, previously, the chambers were their own lone voices across their respective areas, with varying degrees of success with their own local councils. What we found was that there were many issues that were bigger than singularly, say, Parramatta or Blacktown or Ryde, that were issues for all of us, but they never seemed to get the support or the weight or the backing of the State Chamber. So this need was created for a collaboration, not another layer. So there was no intent to suddenly create this other chamber which everyone needed to be a member of, but a way in which the 39 potential Western Sydney chambers could more constructively work together in and drive some of those larger issues. It's less than 12 months old now, in reality, and we've been meeting regularly all the way through this Corona period as well, in identifying and building the issues that we need to. We did have a couple of events lined up, which unfortunately were dented by this, but we've got some questionnaires and things that'll go out and draw in some information. But it is, there are 2 reps from each of the relevant member chambers. And as I said, I think we've got about 10 or 11 members now, out of a potential field of 39 known chambers in the area.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any other questions of Sean?
Yes.
Sorry, you, Andrew.
Sean, Andrew Hill. I always feel welcomed when I come to the Parramatta Chamber, and I know that you do it on the first Tuesday of the month.
We do.
And we also have the privilege of seeing you in November, so we might be able to try and link up our borderline meeting with Parramatta and Riverside.
That would certainly be very keen, as we've done in the past.
Yep.
We'll be promoting our members to join you, hopefully again at Melrose Park if we're allowed to do it. It's a perfect spot for it.
It is.
We're hoping to have our BAFs back on at least by August, if not possibly July. The downside to that will be that the numbers will potentially be somewhat limited in the initial stages, but let's see and watch how it unfolds.
Yeah, Sean, we're proposing that our first live meeting will be in September, hosted by the City of Ryde.
Excellent.
Macquarie Park, so that's our proposed first live meeting.
If numbers allow it, I'd be very happy to try and get there.
That'd be great. Roger, you were going to ask something?
I was just going to ask, is there any red tape that would you, what red tape do you want the government and the councils shaking off in the Parramatta area?
Probably one of the things when we come back will be getting as much oomph back into the restaurant trade in Parramatta. It is seriously dented at the moment with the construction zone and everything else. So any support that the council can give to temporary relief with outside dining and a few other things will be probably the most important thing. Some changes with parking around the area. And probably one of my critical concerns is I know the vision of Parramatta in 2050 is chock-a-block full of trams and buses and all these things bringing people in, and therefore a reduced need for car parking. But critically, between now and then, we can't afford to demolish the car parks now with the expectation of what all of this transport will be like in 10 or 15 years or 20 years. So the rational application of parking and its usage around the area is probably the other big red tape issue. I've got to say we're working very smoothly with council at the moment, and there's a lot of interchange and exchange of ideas that are being listened to and are being actioned. I have a monthly meeting with the Lord Mayor. This month's meeting happened earlier today, and some very constructive discussions on a few issues that the Chamber and the Council will be working on, trying to drive some resolutions.
Thanks, John. With the other chambers, we're looking forward to, as the restrictions ease further, to more collaboration between our respective chambers, but also with CORES. And certainly we'd be looking this year in particular to support the Wasabi function as more so than what we've ever done in previous years. So we're looking forward to some good times coming up. So thanks for joining us again.
No, absolute pleasure.
Amen.
All right. So thank you, guys. Thank you to everyone. I think we're coming to the end of our meeting, unless anyone would like to sort of say anything or participate, or is there any general business that anyone would like to bring up or say anything? If not, we'll sort of call the meeting to a close. Is there anyone who wants to say anything before we move on?
We've got two apologies. We're still trying to get in touch with Jimmy from the Korean Chamber, so he's very keen to talk.
Sure.
The other one was Armin from the Armenian Chamber, so he was he couldn't get on for tonight.
Right.
But congratulations on getting, you know, a whole lot of presidents and the mayor, and I think it would be good to suggest a quarterly meeting like this to keep everyone together.
Yeah, I'm happy to facilitate a quarterly meeting of all our chamber presidents and to stay all aligned and with one voice so that we can sort of add value to all our respective members. That'd be great.
And just one more thing, I would like to say a special thank to Councillor Craig Chong, who came down to Eastwood to see our seniors club's members and did some exercises with us, and there was a great boost of good morale for us. Thank you, Craig.
Great work, Councillor Craig Chong. Great work. All right, if there's no one else who'd like to say anything, I'd wish you well. Take care, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you as these restrictions start easing more and more every day, and wish you well. So thank you all for participating tonight. Thank you.
Good to be here.
Thank
you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tony, well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have you turned your recorder off?
Yep, I'll turn it off now.
And
Tony, thank you.